With the best brand of football in Idaho, this is the 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we talk about the 8-man game week in, week out in the great state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. We are joined, as always, by the coach, Lane Kirkland, over in Cary. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, just hanging out and enjoyed watching that first round. Lots of exciting things going on there.
Yes, and now we prepare for the Final Four on both sides, 1A D1 and 1A D2. No Will Henneke tonight. He's got a kiddo preparing for the theater, Coach Kirkland, school musical coming up. So we get that dad duties, right?
Yeah, what a balanced life, Will. Good job.
That's right. Dad. Super dad for sure. So we brought on a guest to pinch hit, and it's another coach. I'm outnumbered 2-1 on coaches. We'd like to welcome in the head coach of the Mullan St. Regis Tigers, Stetson Spooner. What's going on, Coach Spooner?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Not much.
We're super excited to have you on, Coach Spooner. So I'm outnumbered 2-1 on coaches, but I'm tired of Coach and Will always outnumbering me 2-1 South versus North Idaho, Coach Spooner. So I'm glad we got two North guys finally running the show here.
Yeah, nice. There's not much of us, not many of us hanging around. There's a bunch of new guys up here, so
that's right.
I'll try to hold my own. We'll see what happens.
I think you'll do just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll do just fine, Coach Kirkland. I think you've proven that over the years. So apologies for my voice as well. I'm in the middle of a sickness, and my voice is like right at the edge of the cliff here. So I'm going to let you two do most of the heavy lifting tonight. But Coach Spooner, I think we've got to start with the game your team played last Saturday in the 1A D2 quarterfinals, if only because it's at the very top of the bracket. So we'll just start at the top of the bracket and work our way down. You guys welcomed in Hagerman, a very tough Pirates team that took second place in District 4 this season. And you guys traded blows there on the first couple of possessions, but ultimately Hagerman, big, strong, physical, wears you down. The Pirates win 54-12 over your Tigers. What was the message to your guys after that game concluded?
The message to our guys was probably things that Coach Kirkland has echoed before, that almost every coach does. Tell them to a loss always hurts, but with an 8-1, an 8-2 season, a district title, big wins along the way, and hosting a playoff game in these small communities means so much, especially with our unique situation. It means so much to two communities. Just remind them that there's a ton to celebrate. And yes, losing that game, it sucks. There's no two ways about it. You always want to go on. But yeah, just kind of remind them to embrace the celebratory things that happen throughout the long journey. That's a tough season, and injuries and high and low emotions, great support, and you celebrate all those types of things. And our guys kind of embrace that. I think they got the message loud and clear. And we always say, holding up that blue trophy at the end, that's the ultimate goal. But there's a whole slew of goals that you hit on the way. Some unknowingly. We had our last practice last night, turning in gear, that kind of stuff. Montana guys headed over, and just kind of went through and got to shine some light on with all of our injuries. And it started at Montana Tech Camp, the injuries last June, and the guys that stepped up, and with the guys this program's lost, and still being able to take care of business up here undefeated in District 1 was a thing that people thought might not be as easy to do, and it wasn't. But just to kind of remind our guys that nothing's given to you because you've won District 1 a few times in a row. You guys went out, you earned it all. You other guys that had to step up and fill in for some pretty big shoes in some different positions, you did it. And you gave us a shot and gave us something to celebrate. So
Yeah, Coach Kirkland, Stetson brings up a good point there about, the ultimate goal, of course, is having the blue trophy and hanging up that championship banner. But there are a lot of other goals that you achieve along the way, and it's important to focus on those as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things to learn from a loss, even though it is hard and difficult for yourself with all the effort you put into it, and hard for your athletes and your players and your community. But you have made some great accomplishments along the way, and those must be recognized. And you have to acknowledge those to the kids. And life's not always fair, and it's not, you don't always win and everything, and that's okay. It makes you a stronger person and helps you to recover. Congratulations, Coach Spooner, on another great season. Just before he went on here, I was going over your record the last 5 or 6 years, and you're always there. Your kids are always there, and that's the mark of a great program is getting as far as you can possibly go and finishing as strong as you can, and then acknowledging that and moving on to the next year. But anyway, nice job.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Man, that's high praise coming from a great coach like Coach Kirkland, Coach Spooner. It's like meet your hero day.
I know. I say that same stuff to me in the mirror, but it means more coming from a state champ guy. So,
well, I just went back as well on Huddle today and watched our game that we had quite a few years ago, and he called a good game. I mean, you had us in check a long time, and that's good coaching.
So when did you guys meet head to head? What year was that?
21.
I think it was 21.
21, fall of 21. Yeah, we headed down to Cary, and we brought a couple Ball brothers and a handful of Trogdons, and went down to butt heads with the Perkis, the quarterback.
Yeah, he was quarterback.
And the running back, Simpson. My goodness. And then a couple D linemen were animals. The Larna kid was an absolute tackling vacuum. That was Coach Kirkland's team back in 21. That kind of was the first time Coach Jesse Allen and I looked at each other and kind of went, winning an 8-man state title takes way more than 8 men. How deep Coach Kirkland's team was, how well coached, how disciplined. For even guys that came in, they were switching it up. To be able to trust a group of bigs up front to come in and maybe open up different holes for a Connor Simpson. That's a luxury that not every 8-man team gets. And that really opened that up to us. And we started to kind of explore that this year with that next man up mentality. Don't just focus on those star 8 because they're the ones that get you ahead. I get it. Those handful star players, they're scoring left and right, and they're making all the plays. But we really took that on after that game, actually, against Coach Kirkland, was we gotta rotate guys in and let them know that we trust them and give the opportunity to make plays. So when they are called upon, it's not the first time they have to do it, because you could tell with those Cary teams, definitely with the Kendrick team right now, even with Hagerman, rotate some guys in, and kids came in and sat tight and wanted to seize their opportunity to make a big play. We saw that with Garden Valley last year. They took that Jaden Hunt kid off the field, and we went, oh, thank goodness. And then the next kid came in and made 3 tackles in a row too. So it just that Cary team was the first that really showed us you got to be deep, you have to be disciplined, and it takes a bigger village than 8 for sure to get that final job done.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to have 5 key players missing with injury, like your Mullan St. Regis team did on Saturday. So yeah, Hagerman gets the 54-12 win. Kai Kendall was the IdahoSports.com player of the game. He had 155 yards, 4 touchdowns rushing, 53 yards, and a touchdown receiving. Martin Gonzalez rushes for 181 yards and a touchdown as well. Coach, your team scored on big plays, about a 77-yard kick return for a touchdown by Kofi Apia, and then the 70-yard touchdown pass from Connor Lulis to Hunter Stola. And then otherwise, I mean, it was a rainy, muddy mess. And every time I felt so bad for John Pruitt. I was like, somebody get this kid a new pair of cleats, because he had so many plays where he would make a catch out of the backfield and slip and fall right away and only get a yard or 2. It seemed like Hagerman had the better footing, but it was just a downpour that entire game.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, and it might be because John Pruitt was trying to do too much. He's our fixer of all things broken. That kid's an all-state talent, freak show athlete. The things he did this year for us and his whole high school career for us. Being a kid that actually likes basketball so much more than football, he's a pretty dang good football player and a big, strong body, and he plays mean. And we called on John to do a lot, and they sure had his number. I think it was one of those games where it was weirdly similar but different for the Hagerman coaching staff as well for us. Who can we take away? Who can we take away from their team and maybe make them beat us with someone else? Well, Martinez had 5 touchdowns on the ground the week before for against Mackey. And so we said, I think that's who it was that had 5. And so I looked at Coach Allen and I talked, and we said, well, let's try to limit his scoring. 181 yards, we didn't limit very well, but 1 touchdown, I guess, kind of a little silver lining moral victory for us. But when you got a guy like the Kendall kid that can go off for 4 or 5 touchdowns of his own, you try to take something away and say, if they can beat us with something else, they deserve it. I feel like they did that with Pruitt. They really tried to limit him and take him out of the game. And we unfortunately didn't have enough answers at the other spots, although some of those guys that I was talking about, they did step up and make a couple plays that definitely helped us trade some haymakers early, but we just couldn't sustain it.
Yep, for sure. Coach Kirkland, I wanted to ask you about this because Cary, of course, all the success they've had in football, they're also kind of a basketball power. They've made it to state 26 of the last 27 years or something crazy. I know you've probably had players over the years that like basketball more than football. How do you tap into those guys and get them to appreciate the game of football?
You got to keep them focused all the way through the end. If they pick up a round ball before the season's over, we're going to hear about it. They know that, and they help keep each other focused. The team leaders do, but they're playmakers, and you got to have them on your team, and they still buy into the football scene and do well. You got to have them. Those guys are athletes.
Yeah, and of course, Dick Simpson, the longtime basketball coach there. Cary, does he ever come up to you and go, "What the heck did you do to these guys? I've got 3 guys that I'm counting on that are nicked up or not quite ready to go."
I asked him if he'd got his whistle washed up the other day and ready for practice. He'll get him a week earlier this year.
Yeah, a little earlier than everyone's used to in Cary, for sure. So, so Hagerman moves on to the semifinals, and they're going to play, you talked about it, Coach Spooner. They're going to play this juggernaut from Kendrick. Kendrick beats Dietrich 90-0 last Friday at the Kibbe Dome in Moscow. I was there for that game. I looked up, and I felt like the game had been going for 2 hours, and I looked, and there was 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and it was 78-0 already. And Kendrick ran 15 plays in that first half and scored on 8 of those 15 plays, Coach Spooner. I mean, this is a high churning Kendrick machine. What makes them so difficult?
Well, it's funny you say that. Coach Hobart and I, we talk a couple times throughout the season. And, in just talking to him kind of here and there, he's pretty convinced. And this takes a lot, I think, for Coach Hobart to say, and I think it's a testament to his coaching. When you got a guy like Ty Kep, it's easy to say Ty Kep. But Coach Hobart looks to up front in the trenches. He said this to me, what makes them go and what is maybe overlooked by the names on all the touchdowns and the names by all the pick sixes is how good they are up front in the trenches. They, at that point of attack, they are less than no one. They are animals up there. They have great size, tenacious players, disciplined players. They understand angles. They understand their job. They play for each other. They're an impenetrable unit up front, whether it's a tight set or a spread set. On the defensive side of the ball, you have guys that just say, this gap is mine and I'm going to die with it and put it in my casket with me. They don't let it up to anybody. And on top of that, they're really good at getting separation and just making plays. They rally to the ball. And even if they don't, they're one of those teams that Coach Hobart will probably kill me if he hears me say this, but they're outstanding at tackling in space, in traffic, but they still do rally to the ball better than anyone. But they almost don't need to. You could almost just run a giant 10 yard by 10 yard zone with 8 guys and take up 80, the whole field. I mean, they're really, really impressive. They're fast. They have great size, and it goes deep for them. They can put their 2s and 3s in. It kind of reminds me of the All About the U 30 for 30 documentary when Jimmy Johnson just kind of says, hey, I put my backups in, and if we still keep scoring, that's not exactly our fault. I mean, it's a tough sell. He's got such a deep, talented roster that it's, and mixed with great coaching, a great atmosphere down there. They obviously have a great offseason program, great athletes rolling through, great support, and great scheme by their coaches. It's a testament to the whole package deal there. Coach Kirkland's been a part of very similar, more equal to teams as this. I mean, it's special when this kind of thing rolls through, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's important. That's why we love bringing the context, because you can just look at the score and go 90-0,
Sure.
and coupled with 112-6 2 weeks before that and go, boy,
Right.
Kendrick is just running up the score on everybody. And it's not. I mean, they literally ran 15 plays. Like, what are they supposed to do? Just like, so anyone that thinks Kendrick is not displaying any good sportsmanship, you're totally wrong. They are just executing. They didn't play any of their starters in the second half, and it's just a thing that they've dealt with all year long. So they win 90-0. I mean, we could go through all the highlights. Ty Kep completes 5 of 6 passes for 188 yards and 4 touchdowns. Had a rushing touchdown. Hunter Taylor had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns, returned a punt for 6. But the guys up front, Dallas Morgan, Brock Boyer, Carson Hogan, really did their job. They rushed. I mean, after they scored like twice in the first quarter, they pretty much rushed 2 guys. And those 2 guys still got into the Dietrich backfield. Brock Boyer had 2.5 sacks. And so it was just kind of the proverbial buzzsaw that Dietrich ran into there. So Coach Kirkland, what does Hagerman have to do to hang with Kendrick and then keep it close where they have a chance to maybe score the knockout?
I think they're going to have to make sure they control the ball. They need first downs, one after another, to control that clock and to just hang on to the ball as long as they can and then punch it in. But Kendrick is tough up front. We've underestimated them in the past, and they have really gotten strong and stout there. And getting past that front line is going to be difficult. But this is a powerful Hagerman team, and I think they have the ability to perhaps run this ball. They'll have to be consistent. They'll have to continue to believe and pound and to see what happens. But they need to strike early and, like I say, control that clock and hang on to the football, because it's going to be a physical game of some big dudes up front on both sides.
Yeah, Stetson, I want to pick your brain on this too, because the winner of you or Hagerman was going to play Kendrick, and I'm sure you thought in your head, okay, what would I do against Kendrick? So let's say you've seen Hagerman now. Let's pretend you're Coach Bill Hicks and you're now coaching Hagerman. What is your game plan going into this home semifinal game in Hagerman against Kendrick?
Somehow try to make the clock your 9th defender. Somehow try to limit what Ty Kep and Clemenhagen, you could just go through the names of these Kendrick guys that score at will. If you can make the clock somehow try to benefit you and maybe keep the scoring lower, it can only benefit you. I just feel like if Kendrick's offense is on the field, it's just this year, it's one of those squads that's probably just a bad recipe for your defense. The best thing you may be able to do is to keep their offense off the field as much as possible and maybe make their defenders work for it, get a little tired. Maybe that kind of hurts the big plays on the offensive side. If there's a lot of two-way players like most of us at 8-man, I don't think many of us can just 2-platoon an 8 offense and an 8 defense. But I think if there's some way they can slow it down, and I think trying to make that clock your best friend, and when the ref's hand goes up, you're starting your cadence, and you got to get first downs. You said it best. You have to be able to move that ball. If you're stagnant, if you're 3 and out, definitely turnovers. You obviously have to take care of the ball. But man, 3 and outs kill you against Kendrick, because they just make you pay. When it's their turn to have the rock, they know what to do with it. So if you could somehow limit that, I don't see it being a negative for your ball club for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And Hagerman, I think, was already kind of in that mode. They got to the line several times against Mullan St. Regis on Saturday, and hard count, calling that cadence, trying to get you guys offside. A couple of times they got dinged for the delay of game penalty, but I'm sure they'll have that cleaned up for Saturday. This is
they did they did a good job with that. Realistically, I mean, they maybe had 2, perhaps 3 false starts and maybe a delay a game or 2, maybe I think just 1. I mean, for 3 or 4 minor mistakes there, 5-yarders that kind of kill you. And I don't think we're on 4th and 1 at a goal line or anything real detrimental. Hagerman did a really good job with that. That's a testament to their staff and their discipline for their kids. That's that hard count. It's interesting. I played offensive line all through high school and college, and I would hate to have that and try to be disciplined in that system. It's very tough. They did a great job on that.
Yeah, and your guys did too. I mean, I think you only jumped offside once or twice, so you guys were pretty disciplined there as well. A real key to this game, I think, is going to be the sophomore Alex Johnson, two-way lineman for Hagerman. He doesn't look like a sophomore, but he is, and he's a big, imposing guy.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see that matchup up front for sure. Coach Kirkland, let me get your thoughts on this. Kendrick is record-wise and standing-wise the better team, yet they have to travel to Hagerman because Hagerman inherits that home field advantage from Mullan St. Regis by virtue of beating them. What do you think about that?
They've traveled a lot already, I think, this year down to play those other D1 schools, and it's just another hour or so down the road. I think they'll travel pretty well. But it'll be in a different atmosphere and not on turf. And it's been raining quite a bit down here this weekend. So field conditions could play a little bit into that. But I think they've traveled pretty well and proven that all year long.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. This game will be Saturday, I believe at 1:00. Let me double check the kickoff time. It'll be on IdahoSports.com. You can tune in and catch the action there on Saturday. Our other semifinal is 2 high-octane offenses that each scored 70 points last week, fellas. Rockland at Camas County. So Camas County beats Garden Valley 70-13. Tristan Smith, 154 yards, 3 touchdowns passing for the Mushers. Tyson Tupper runs for 101 yards and a touchdown. Emmett Palin catches 4 balls for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Rockland beat Tri-Valley last Saturday, 70-12. Teague Matthews, boy, he brought his he ate 2 bowls of Wheaties last Saturday morning. 251 yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, 8 tackles on defense, 8 touchdowns in total. Coach Kirkland, we've talked about Teague Matthews all year long, but I think now, this is going to be a Camas County defense that's well coached and well prepared to stop him on he's option A, B, and C, top priority for that Camas County defense.
Yeah, I think he's going to have another game of his life and hang on to the football and hang on to his britches, because Camas will be coming at it pretty hard, as he's proved all season long to be the leader on both sides of the ball, inside, outside, throwing, running. Just a great all-around player. He's going to have to find some other targets, and I think they're going to have to use some other guys. But they've got themselves there now to the next level of the bracket. I talked to Kip Wilson a little bit through text messages on the game, and of course he's talked going back clear to 87 last time they made it in the semifinals, and that's it's a great accomplishment for those guys. And I'm sure they'll be hungry and working hard to be able to do their best to control and have a good game against a strong Camas team that's really determined and did well against Garden Valley this past weekend again.
Yeah, Rockland gets the semifinals for the first time in 36 years. We're going to party like it's 1987. I wasn't even alive in 1987, so I don't know if I want to be a part of that party, Stetson.
I was a couple months old this time in November of 87. So
you got to be kidding me. I'm that much older than you guys. I was a sophomore.
Well, good. I have time then to try to win the things you've won still.
Oh man. That's great.
Yeah, you still got some miles on the road there, Coach Spooner. What is that like? Because you took Mullan St. Regis to the semis a couple years ago, and it had been not a similar drought. I mean, how long had it been since Mullan had been playing in the state semifinals when you guys?
Man, I don't remember now. I want to say it was 2003. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was something like that. Man, it was a lot of excitement. It's fun. I mean, I'm sure Rockland is just ecstatic and has ample support through the roof right now. It's a lot of excitement for a community. And for us, again, our special situation, we got double it. We got two communities. We were back and forth and people were honking and parades leaving town. And heck, there was almost parades for us to come to practice back when that happened. People were so excited, and you got some stud players on your team, and people get behind that kind of superstar caliber type of guy. And Teague Matthews is that guy. I have never seen him with my own eyes, but I've seen a lot of film. That guy is a different breed. How big is he? What he looks, is he 6'4"?
Like 6'5".
Okay, okay, he's what he looks like. He's at times, man, he is a man amongst boys. I mean, things he can do. I thought he was legit real deal, and then I think it was one of our players, or maybe I saw somewhere something come across for a legitimate visit to the Utah Utes, and I'm going, okay, this guy's real deal. That's not a generic. You have a good GPA, come visit there. That's a pretty huge honor to go down to a program like that and be taken serious. And as he should, at least from what I've seen on film, he is the real deal. He's got the size, speed, tons of talent. I'm sure he's an intelligent, well-coached kid and coachable guy, and probably has great character and class and leadership, which is really awesome for Rockland. Types of guys like that probably don't come through every 2 years or so, maybe every 30. So
that's right. 1987. The last time I saw Teague Matthews play with my own eyes, he was a sophomore wide receiver and just a matchup nightmare when he was playing. And then I watched him play basketball. I saw him elevate for a one-handed dunk. I've seen him high jump in track, and he is just a physical specimen for sure. On the other side, though, Coach Kirkland, is this Camas County team that we've kind of been saying all year. Okay, it looks like it's probably going to be Kendrick and Camas on this collision course. What do the Mushers have to do to get to the championship game? They're in the semis for the first time since 2004, so they're in, breaking quite a lengthy semifinal drought as well.
They are, yeah, and I think this community has been excited about this group of senior boys for a long time. They had an amazing junior high season, and they've continued to elevate their game throughout their high school career, and now here they are, seniors, 12 or however many of them there are, and all worked very hard for this goal to be a tremendous and outstanding state contender this time of year. I know there was at least a dozen of those guys that chose not to come out for track and field and hit the weight room instead and get themselves ripped and physical and ready to prove themselves a contender down at this particular level. And they've certainly done that so far this season. I think they still need to remain very hungry and very focused, as I think they will be, and know that you can't take this next game lightly in Rockland, and just can go forward and have a great game plan, execute, and just fight like crazy, because getting through the semis is one thing, and it's a great accomplishment. I mean, you feel satisfied having won a semifinal game. It's a massive accomplishment because you made your goal. You got to the championship game, and now it's time to prove yourself. But the hungriest teams win in the semifinals, and Camas will have to stay pretty darn hungry.
Yeah, and you just know Camas County, they've got to get past this game, of course, but they would love to get another shot at Kendrick after they had to play Kendrick very early last year in the quarterfinals, and Kendrick shut him out 46-0 a season ago. And recent history suggests, Stetson, that Camas County is the favorite here. I mean, they played Rockland in the season opener and won 62-12. When you've already played a team earlier in the season, how much adjusting and scheming can you do to change the outcome of the game?
Man, that's it's kind of a tough question. It's kind of not for us up here. We play everybody twice anyway, as far as league opponents.
Right.
But man, I don't think the Camas County coaching staff is sad that they've seen Teague once. I mean, having any information, like for me, it would be a nightmare. Only have seeing him on film. Seeing someone on film, it can sometimes play a trick on your eyes, and you hear how good one player is. You may overlook the other players and go, well, let's scheme for this guy because these guys clearly aren't this guy. Well, if somebody's not quite Teague Matthews, they're potentially still a really good football player. So for them to have played them once, got the feel for the things he's capable of, I don't think that's going to hurt Camas County. They have some really impressive athletes on their side of the ball as well. I've seen some film on Camas, and I will say about Camas up front, they are no slouch up front, and there is not a lot of trickery. Everybody knows I'm a down block, pull and pin type of guy, usually because we're just undersized and that kind of stuff. Maybe have somebody fast, but 160-pound O linemen usually aren't who you exactly would recruit if we could. But I think that Camas has, from watching film, they just kind of line up and the guy in front of them goes for a ride. They can move people and they can do it well. They use angles well. They're quick. They're strong. Like Coach Kirkland said, you can tell maybe a handful of a core group of those guys went into a weight room and they kind of took their naps there and ate dinner there and slept there and did their thing. And that's pretty important. And I think Camas is potentially pretty overlooked up front. They're really good too. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's give a shout out to some of the guys that don't always get the accolades here. For Rockland, somebody's got to catch those passes that Teague Matthews is throwing, and their two leading receivers this year are Abe Held and then Aiden Radford. Aiden Radford's got 810 receiving yards and 18 touchdowns. I mean, that's big league.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
And also they've got a freshman, Zach Perman. You guys are shocked to hear a Perman playing for Rockland, right? That's like a Simpson at Cary.
There's another one. Yeah.
Yep. He's a freshman. He's got 250. Exactly. So Zach Perman has been a great receiver. Cody Woodworth has been a great receiver. And then they've got two guys that run the ball besides Teague Matthews in Eli Hendrickson. And then they've also got a junior, Ethan Crump. So there's a lot of weapons for this Rockland team on offense. And you talked about for Camas County, some of the guys that they're leaning on up front. I think it starts with Zach Piddock up front, the 6'1", 170-pound senior who really holds down the point of attack. He's a good player. So, yeah, that's what makes these semifinal games so fun, because we can really dissect each team, and it's not just, Teague Matthews versus Tristan Smith. It's like, no, we can go deep into the lineups to break these down. So, should be fun. This semifinal game will be played at Gooding High School, neutral site game, Friday night, 7:00, also on IdahoSports.com. IdahoSports.com will be broadcasting every single semifinal matchup. And for the 1A D1 games, which we're going to get to in just a second here, we'll be providing video coverage. So even better, you can check out IdahoSports.com video coverage of those 1A D1 semifinals. So let's get to the 1A D1 bracket, guys. Number one, Oakley, they beat Notice 70-6 in the quarterfinals. They're moving on to the semis. Coach Kirkland, I didn't realize this until after we had taped last week's episode, but Notice was without their starting quarterback, Baney, who had gotten injured a couple of weeks prior. So Notice going up against the number one team without their top QB. That was going to be a tall order for the Pirates.
Yeah, definitely a difficult circumstance there, especially towards the end of the season, where Baney has carried the Pirates all year long and done a great job in leadership and that sort of thing. Oakley is well prepared, firing on all cylinders, and Notice had a great season and did the best once again. And like Coach Spooner said, they need to be congratulated on the things that they've done in a conference championship as well, and a best finish that they could against a team that's trying to go for another championship. Believe it or not.
Yeah, shocking to hear that Oakley, is in the Final Four once again. I mean, on the opening play of the game, Stetson, Bryce Severe takes it to the house from 85 yards out. Kind of sets the tone on offense.
Yeah, what I've seen of Oakley and what I've heard is just an endless flow of top-notch athletes, great size, great athleticism. Again, another powerhouse program with what one could only assume is outstanding top-tier coaching, off-season commitment, buy-in from the guys, and support from their community. That's awesome. It's pretty cool. And it's cool to see some of these other programs sort of emerge, the Hagermans and Tri-Valley's a team since I've kind of been but since our program has kind of reached maybe a level of relevancy, like Coach Kirkland said, we kind of been there. Tri-Valley's a team I haven't heard much of it, and to see them come out and get Garden Valley, who I know is a good team, who beat our butts here last year. So that's cool too. But man, those programs that are always there, you could probably try to find a flaw with them, and maybe one exists, but it's probably very minor. And all you can do is give them their props and say, great job, and kind of use them as pillars to strive for, really. I mean, since we played a Coach Kirkland-led Cary team, we've used that as an example. Since we played Zane Hobart's Kendrick team back in 19 in the playoffs up here in a very similar rainstorm as last Saturday, we use those programs in our coaching to say, hey, it is hard out here, and it's cold, and it's windy, and this is hard. What do you think these teams are doing? And our guys seem to, it's becoming more, they're understanding it more the more we lose to programs like these. They're kind of looking, going, yeah, man, they've got a little something extra. And I think Oakley is definitely, they've done their job proving that something extra is something that they always possess.
Yeah, the District 3 teams kind of get a bad rap always, but yeah, Tri-Valley, Garden Valley, and Notice, the three teams that were still competing from District 3 this weekend, all did a great job. For Oakley, Kyler Robinson throws 4 touchdown passes. Bryce Sevier runs for 3 scores. Oakley, rocks and rolls. We've been talking about history and trends, and Oakley hasn't been to the semis since last year, so there's not much history to talk about there, but. At the start of the season, their coach, Brennan Jones, sent me some pretty interesting info, guys, and I thought I would share it here on the Prepcast this week. Oakley's first football game in school history was 100 years ago this year, 1923. How about it, Coach Kirkland?
Wow, that's pretty good history right there. Pretty good.
Yeah, one of the members of the team, David B. Haight, wrote a speech that he delivered, and he talked about he was part of that first game. And so Coach Jones gave me the excerpt of his speech, and here's what he said. I grew up in a small country town in Idaho. Football came to our school later than most. It was 1923. We had neither equipment nor a coach, but the great day arrived when our high school principal was able to buy 12 inexpensive football outfits, but not football shoes with cleats. We used our basketball shoes. Our chemistry teacher was recruited to be our coach because he had once witnessed a real game. He taught us a few simple plays and how to tackle, and then we were ready to play, or so we thought. We set off for our first game with Twin Falls, the previous year's Idaho State champions. We dressed and went out on the field to warm up. Their school band started to play. They had more students in the band than we had in our entire high school. And then through the gates came their team. They kept coming and coming, all 39 of them, fully equipped and shoes with cleats. The 12 of us, a team full of 11 plus one all-around substitute, watched in amazement. The game was most interesting. To say it was a learning experience is rather mild. After just 2 plays, we had no desire to have the ball. So we kicked it, and they scored. Whenever they got the ball, they would run a baffling play and score. Our goal was to get rid of the ball. It was less punishing. In the final minutes of the game, they became a little reckless, and a wild pass fell into the arms of Clifford Lee, who was playing halfback with me. He was startled, not knowing for sure what to do. That is, until he saw them thundering after him. Then he knew what to do, and boy, was he fast. But he wasn't running for points. He was running for his life. Clifford made a touchdown. 6 points went up on the scoreboard. The final score, 106-6. We really didn't deserve the 6 points, but with our bloody shirts and socks and cuts and bruises, we took them anyway. A learning experience, of course. An individual or a team must be prepared. Success or achievement depends upon preparation. What an excerpt, huh, Coach Kirkland?
Wow. Oh yeah, yeah. I actually heard him give that talk that he delivered there, and I actually met David B. Haight when I was coaching in Oakley, and what a great tradition that they have. They have a lot of tradition in Oakley, and those guys in the 70s and 80s are there, and it was a lot of fun to hear them talk. It's the same names as have been there forever. A lot of great tradition, and now they're playing 8-man ball and competing and winning championships. So that's a great historical mark right there.
Yeah, what'd you think of that story, Coach Spooner?
That was pretty cool. That was it kind of shocked me when 11 with the one substitute. I went, oh yeah, they weren't playing 8-man then. That's pretty wild. Here we are. We need a co-op because we got 10. That coach would have been pumped to have one more, to have 2 on the sideline. So, times change, but that's football. That's awesome. That's a group of young men coming together with a common goal. And without that group taking that 100-point punishment, who knows? Maybe Oakley's championships, and it feels like they've been in the semifinals every year since 1923 anyway. So, but who knows? Maybe their rich history, their rich recent history, and their state titles and success, maybe it all goes back that whole way back to that first team in 1923. Who are we to say it didn't? So that's pretty cool to know that football's kind of always been the same, however you slice it, from 100 years ago to yesterday. It's kind of the same deal.
Yeah, it is the lifeblood of our 8-man communities, and that's why we love doing this show. So Oakley is going to get ready to play Grace. Wow. Hey, Grizzly Nation, I got to come wear it. I said Cammy all the way last week. Coach Kirkland, we were talking about the weather forecast, and it just dumped rain in Cammy all week last week. And we said, oh man, that could be tough for Grace. And Jody, who's a big Grace supporter and loves giving us a hard time, he goes, yeah, good thing Grace doesn't know what it's like to play in rain. We've never encountered that. What's this mysterious rain? Grace had no problems, Coach. They went up there and won 20-0. They shut out the Cubs.
Yeah. I picked Cammy as well. Grace was on a mission, and I guess they get rain and Grace too. So, prepared already on the road and showed up strong in that first half, scoring those first 20 points and then hanging on to the end with the same names that Mr. Draper doing an excellent job at quarterback, stepping in that position not too many games ago, leading that team. And what a great move, and opening up another avenue for a better player, perhaps in space than he may have been. So great moves towards the end of the season there, and Grace coming up with the victory.
Yeah, Coach, I know you had talked to Coach Draper from Grace a couple of weeks ago before the playoffs started. Was Gavin playing at a different position and they just made the switch? Was he coming back from an injury? Do you know?
I didn't get a chance to ask him about that, but he was pretty proud that his son was in that spot now and moving forward. So I'm not quite sure on the story there.
Yeah, and I don't live in East Idaho anymore, so it's been hard for me to follow Grace from all the way up north here, but we're excited to have them. Grace, I love to be wrong, and congratulations. That's a well-earned, hard road trip north to Cammy to get that 20-0 win. Braden Kimball, former quarterback, rushes for 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wyatt Cutler had 86 yards rushing as well. Gavin Draper throws 144 yards and a touchdown to Brennan Sorensen. So now it's Grace and Oakley, Coach Spooner, and these teams seem to match up pretty well. They're both pretty physical on defense. They both like to run the ball first and then sprinkle in a couple of passes here and there. Somebody's got to beat Oakley at some point, right?
Yeah. Grace has the tools to do it. They've been a role model team since the beginning of the year. As far as any rankings and coaches speaking highly of them, that's been since the start. That I can remember this year. Grace has been right in there. And I think Grace has some hidden toughness. As a track coach, I also see for the last couple of years, a young man from Cammy by the name of Porter Whipple. And for Cammy to be scoreless, I'm sure some mistakes were made, and that's football. That happens. But I've seen Porter Whipple, and coaching against him would probably pose some pretty massive hurdles. And kudos to Grace for neutralizing what I can only imagine is a team full of great athletes, which means they have some toughness and a great coaching staff. And and some scheme that's probably put in place to attempt to slow Oakley down. I would say the biggest thing Oakley has at this point in this game would be experience in this situation. And most recently, they've won state titles. They're on a run. It's tough not to give them an upper hand based off that. And just as Grace will have a scheme that's drawn up to try to slow them down, Oakley, they seem to draw up a great scheme to slow others down while making themselves speed up. And that's kind of a thing you're seeing down again with Kendrick. And not only can they scheme to slow you down, but boy, their scheme seems to make them really take off and fire off. And I think Oakley looks to be kind of one of those ball clubs with a lot of weapons at their disposal that they know how to use.
Yeah, Coach, last year, Coach Kirkland, these teams met in the championship, right? Grace and Oakley. It was kind of old hat for Oakley. It was kind of a new thing for Grace, and maybe eyes were a little wider than on the Oakley sideline, and they hung tough for a half last year in that championship. Yeah. And then in the third quarter, Bryce Sevier, I think it was Bryce Sevier, somebody returned the second half kickoff for a touchdown and really got the momentum going. Oakley won that championship last year, 58-20. These are two teams you've seen up close and personal, Coach Kirkland, in your coaching career and now also in your media career. You've seen these teams up close. Give us the tale of the tape. Where do you think this game is won or lost?
Once again, semifinals, I believe, are come down to turnovers and time of possession and what you do with the ball, getting those first downs and converting your extra points. But it also comes down, like I always say, to who wants it the most, how hungry you are. And I think Grace has put themselves in a good position, fought hard to get to where they are. Their defense is sometimes mysterious. You underestimate it when you watch it on film and you go, we can run this, we can run that. And you can't. They figure out a way to stop it. They got a good staff that schemes very well and understands what you're going to do and reads it. And so you got to be Oakley's got to be aware of that. But I think Oakley has some upper hand here. There's some hunger that's still left in them and a desire, and it is going to be a good ball game in Oakley. And we'll see who wants it the most. Really, we'll call it that.
For sure. Grace has the best defense of the four teams that are left in terms of points per game allowed. They're only allowing 15.9 points per game. And I know that's something that Coach James Newby really prides himself on. You want to know how I know, guys? Because when we get the roster for Grace, usually the positions are listed offense first, right? Oh, this kid's a wide receiver / DB. No. At Grace, the defensive position is listed first. He's a DB / wide receiver.
That's awesome.
Never seen that. That's cool.
Yeah, I hadn't either until I got the one from Grace. And of course, Coach Newby is a great wrestling coach there at Grace High School as well. They've got all the weights listed, but none of the heights. None of that basketball stuff, just the wrestling stuff, the weights. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, all right, Coach Kirkland, tell me, Grace will win if, complete the sentence.
If they cause turnovers and convert.
Okay. I like it. Okay. I this is the game I'm most excited about of any of the Final Four matchups, I think, is Oakley and Grace. Our other semifinal at the bottom half of the bracket will feature Butte County and Logos, 2 and a 3, North versus East. Butte County beats Valley last week, 52-20. Brody Westergaard rushes for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, also caught a touchdown from Keaton Archibald. Archibald, the quarterback, rushed for 154 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. And how about this defensive standout, Braxton Gamet, 15 tackles, an interception, and a fumble recovery. 15 tackles on defense, Coach Spooner. That's doing some work.
Oh, yeah. I kind of sound like a broken record with District 4 teams, both at the 1A D2 and 1A D1 next year's 1A and 2A levels, is athletes. I mean, I've seen film on Butte County a couple of years ago. We were trying to find a game, and we contemplated trying to meet up with them for I don't know if it was the COVID year or what it was, but both of us had an opening, and we were talking about a game. And I think they were a really good team back then that we thought that's going to push us, and even a loss would teach us a lot about ourselves, and we could use it as a coachable opportunity. They've just gotten better since then. Butte County's a really, really impressive football team. And on the other side of that is Logos, which is a really wild looking offensive team, really fun to watch, super outside of the box. And if anything, it makes scheming for them in 1 week a giant task, and maybe defensively you lose yourself as a head coach at one of these smaller schools trying so hard, or you lose yourself offensively trying so hard to make something schematically on defense that makes sense, that covers your P's and Q's, because Logos comes at you with some wild stuff, and they're kind of another one of those northern teams of destiny right now that seems to, everything's kind of fallen in line for them. They're really fun to watch. They're explosive. Their quarterback is extremely cerebral, very disciplined, reads quick. I think does a great job pre-snap, understanding where he's most likely going to go. I think he's just able to see stuff at a really fast rate. I think this could be a really unique football game.
It's going to be an interesting one. Logos beat Murtaugh last week, 60-26 in the Kibbe Dome. This was a game that I was at. First playoff game in school history, first playoff win in school history, only the third year of varsity football for Logos. Jack Driscoll, quarterback, 530 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing, 9 touchdowns in total, over 600 yards of total offense. We were doing the post-game show, Coach Kirkland, and I'm adding up his totals, and I'm like, over 500 yards? That can't be right. Let me add it up again. Sure enough, it was, and it was really impressive. When you have a field general like that, I mean, any play in the playbook is at your disposal.
That's a lot of yards. That's amazing, and the completion ratio is amazing. The quarterback rating must have been somewhere near like 2,000 or something. That's very efficient and very effective with the football and getting it done with that particular scheme. I'm excited to see this game. I'm going over Friday night to watch to see what adjustments Coach Thorngren will make against that offense. I've talked with him a little bit this week, and he's understands the scheme, offensive scheme they bring is a little bit different and difficult. But I think Coach Thorngren is a perfect guy to try and figure something out to go against that. And we'll see what he pulls out of his pocket to try and counter that new stuff that has kind of been introduced to the league in 8-man football. But Logos seems to be a powerful team and on a roll right now. So it should be really interesting and a lot of fun to bring both of those teams together.
Yeah, Coach Spooner, I'm sure you've seen a lot of Logos on film. Lakeside played them earlier this year. I've tried to explain a couple of times here on the Prepcast this Logos offense, but maybe you can put it into better words than I do.
It plays on a scheme of trying to make defenses figure out something quick. If I was a defensive coach looking at it, I would feel under the gun to look at who's eligible, who's where, every play, understand space. Are you going to play, a softer kind of shell 2 over the top of it and trust athletes to limit other athletes in space? I think it at times can make a consistent pass rush very difficult without just completely, at times, accidentally wasting a defensive player in the pass rush system. Maybe, if that makes any sense. I feel like there'll be a couple times where you think, oh man, that guy didn't need to do that. He would have been better fit here. But I think if any team has athletes, there's a couple teams out there. Grace and Oakley are no slouches. But I think if Butte County has the athletes to try to limit or match the space that Logos attempts to play in. I think Logos just keeps kind of poking a needle till they see a soft spot, and Driscoll's so good and efficient at capitalizing on even the smallest but beneficial window that helps their offense succeed. And any yards are good yards is what I can tell from Driscoll. He's a positive play guy. And that it's pretty impressive. It's fast, it's quick, it's unique. It makes like I said, defensive coaches, I think, just because it changes a little bit, they don't reinvent their wild shaped wheel anyway of an offense every play, but there's little wrinkles they do where this guy's on, this guy's off. It's still all spread out. It's wild. I think as a defensive coach, you have to really be able to react quickly to those small wrinkles that can change just between first and third down there.
Yeah, so that what they do is they go 4 wide, and they are like all the way to the boundaries, right?
Yep.
They're all the way up to the sidelines, and then they have the center and 2 guards that are typically off the line of scrimmage.
Correct.
Meanwhile, the 2 slot receivers will be on the line of scrimmage. And what they will do is they will shift. Sometimes it's both slot guys go off, both guards go up. Sometimes it's only one. But what that does is there's some tricky stuff where sometimes the guards are eligible to go deep on pass plays. And that bit Murtaugh a couple of times where the guard went right down the middle and nobody covered him, and big catch reception. So you have to constantly be thinking. It's like baseball. You always have to be thinking in the back of my mind, okay, if they do this, where am I going? What's my responsibility?
Yeah.
It is a lot to prepare for in a short week. And also, I mean, the coaching staff at Logos is fantastic. Nick Holloway, the head coach, does a great job. They've got J.C. Christensen as an assistant who played the game of football for a long time and has coached for a really long time. And then Skylar Craycraft is an assistant coach as well. His brother is River Craycraft, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. He actually came back a couple of weeks ago. And so these guys got to practice with an NFL player, Coach Kirkland. Wow. I mean, you can't simulate that type of experience.
That's a pretty super motivation right there, and a privilege to be able to say so. Oh, that's pretty interesting. The first thing, I haven't seen Logos's offense, but the first thing that came to my mind is how I would defend that. And I'm not a defensive coach, but I would say just drop into cover 4 the whole game and spy Driscoll like crazy and see what happens. But it's going to be a hostile environment rolling in to Arco, Idaho, with those Pirates and the mission that they're on, and it's just going to be fun to watch. I'm going to be on the sidelines.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun matchup for sure. The 1A D1 games, both are going to be outstanding, and both of them can be watched on IdahoSports.com Friday evening. It's going to be a really fun time for sure. Okay, let's get official championship predictions here. I'll go first, guys. I'll get it. I'll get the hard stuff out of the way first. For 1A D1, I will say Oakley versus Butte County. 1A D2, I will go Kendrick versus Camas County. All chalk, very boring, I know. Coach Kirkland, what do you got?
I second the motion. Straight across.
Stetson?
I'm going to go almost the same, but I think Logos poses problems to people. I think their offensive coaching staff thinks as quickly as you have to defensively to stop them, and I'm going to go with Logos with an upset. I'm going to go Logos versus Oakley in the state title, and I'm going to go probably Kendrick Camas. I think that I think those two have kind of been on separate ends of the train tracks, headed each other's way this entire year is what it's just kind of felt like. So in a way, selfishly, I kind of want to see those trains collide. That'd be a good one.
For sure. No matter what happens, making it to the Final Four is no small feat. So congratulations to the eight-man teams that are still up and fighting this weekend. Is that right? 8 teams left, or is it 4? Yeah, 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, that's I'm not a math major, guys. So that's oh man, it's going to be a great weekend. What's that?
We only go by 6s and 2s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was my problem. 4s, who's counting by 4s? Nobody here. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Coach Stetson Spooner of the Mullan St. Regis Tigers. Thank you so much for pinch hitting this week. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Hey, huge shout out to you guys at Idaho Sports, Coach Kirkland, Skaggs, the whole crew, Heineke. You guys, I know there's more I'm missing, but there's a slew of you guys, and I just put on Facebook yesterday. I don't comment much on super public stuff, but I did. I wrote, you guys, what you do for high school student athletes in the state of Idaho is unmatched by anybody trying to to follow your guys' shoes. You guys do a great job. And I think you're extremely beneficial for what it is that all of us coaches try to do and what these kids try to do, the exposure, the positive feedback, the honest takes and kind of the historical facts that you throw out. It's cool. The communities, I think, are jumping on board with Idaho sports pretty fast if they haven't already. And to those of you people out there listening, give them a like, give them a share, give them a follow. They're worth it. You guys are part of my lay in bed trying to fall asleep between huddle film and watching what you guys have going on is kind of my routine. So I appreciate you guys and thanks.
Stetson's angling for a job in our PR department.
Hey, he's a pro to me. Nice job.
Everything's for sale for the right price.
Oh, wow. Hey, we appreciate the kind words, of course, and that's why we do it, is to shine the spotlight on these young men and women in our communities that are being great role models, great student athletes, and just great people in general. So, yes, thank you for the kind words, Stetson. We appreciate it. Coach Kirkland, have fun Friday night in Arco. Bring a jacket. Might be chilly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. And I have the week off. There's no games up in North Idaho, so I'm going to sit back and just watch and listen to everything and hopefully rest up. Hopefully my voice is back at 100% by the time we do the championship edition of the 8-Man Prepcast. So it's going to be a good time. All right. Well, for Coach Lane Kirkland and for Coach Stetson Spooner, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the 8-Man Prepcast, everybody. Enjoy the semifinals. We'll see you back here for championship week next time on IdahoSports.com.